Now that you have read Annex 1 of the Medical Device Regulations, the MDR, let's take a closer look at the General Safety and Performance Requirements, the GSPRs, in the chapters of the Annex for an example medical device. Assume you plan to develop a transcutaneous electrical muscle stimulation device similar to this one. Muscle stimulators like these are available without a prescription and can be bought off the shelf at a drugstore or at an electronics shop. This is also how I obtained this device. I chose one randomly just to serve as an example. In case you are not familiar yet with this type of device, it provides electrical pulses through the skin to stimulate muscles or nerves for muscle training or pain relief purposes. It works on batteries and transfers the electrical pulses to the skin through electrodes that are attached with an adhesive. Which Annex 1 articles do you expect to be applicable for this device? You can pause the video for a couple of seconds to think about it. I will now go over a couple of exemplary articles of Annex 1 for the muscle stimulator. We do not have the time to go over all of them. This is not a complete list. Starting with Chapter 1, the general requirements. Since this is not a device type listed in Annex 16, all articles of the first GSPR chapter apply, except for Article 9. Article 1 makes clear that you need to prove comprehensively that the device is performing as intended. It is effective and safe when being used, not only for the patient as primary user, but also for other people potentially involved. Recognizing any risks and iteratively weighing these against the benefits to the patient, while aiming for the highest protection of health and safety, and taking the generally acknowledged state of the art into account. The other articles in Chapter 1 further detail what is generally expected regarding risk analysis and management. Chapter 2 is about the design and manufacturing of the device, starting with the device's chemical, physical, and biological properties in Article 10. How did you select the materials for the different components of the device, for example, the plastics for the device casing? And how did you select the adhesive for the electrodes and verify its biocompatibility, since these are attached to the skin? And did you check that the selected materials maintain the proper mechanical properties when used over time? Article 11 is about managing risks related to infection and contamination during production and use. How did you ensure that the electrodes that are attached to the skin are produced and packaged in a clean manner and do not contain any infection risks for the users? How does the device design facilitate safe cleaning? Since the device does not involve radiation, Article 16 is not applicable. Article 18 is about an active device and thus relevant. Article 18.2 states that for battery-operated active devices, you need to include something to determine the status of the power supply and an appropriate warning or indication for when the capacity of the power supply becomes critical. The screen of the device shows a battery symbol when it's almost empty or flat. Article 19 is not applicable since it's not an implantable device. Article 22 includes requirements for devices intended to be used by laypersons. So when developing an off-the-shelf device like the muscle stimulator, you must demonstrate how you took the diversity of users with different levels of knowledge and experience and variations in user environments into account. This article also states that information and instructions provided by the manufacturer shall be easy for the laypersons to understand and apply. Annex 1, Chapter 3 presents further requirements for information supplied with the device, which apply to all types of devices, not just those for laypersons. Article 23.1 lists general requirements for the labeling and instructions for use. And Article 21.d is applicable for Class 1 and Class 2A devices, stating that instructions for use might not need to be provided. The muscle stimulator is a 2A device. However, since the screen on the device itself only gives summary information, the instructions are needed to make proper decisions regarding device program settings and its safe use. And thus, instructions for use are required. Article 23.1h states that any symbol or identification color used shall be conform to harmonized standards or common specifications. And Article 23.2 lists what needs to be communicated on the device or its packaging. You can recognize a set of these at the backside of the muscle stimulator, its packaging, and on the packaging of the individual packaged electrodes. The 0483 next to the CE symbol shows that the notified body that checked the conformity of the device is MDC, which is based in Stuttgart, Germany. The last articles of Annex 1, 23.4, lists some specific requirements for the information included in the instructions for use.